Welcome back, everyone. We're diving deep today into a concept from a recent Emmanuel Makandiwa sermon.
Oh, this is going to be good.
It really got me thinking.
Yeah.
It's about the idea that we need not one, but two revelations for real spiritual growth.
Okay, two revelations.
So we all know about seeking a revelation of God.
Right, of course.
But Makandiwa says there's a second one that's just as important, and it's a revelation of our man of God.
Our man of God, meaning?
Yeah, our spiritual leader or mentor.
Okay, I see. So not just like a general revelation of any man, but specifically
Exactly.
your spiritual mentor.
The person guiding you on your path.
Okay, interesting.
And what I find so fascinating is how Makandiwa takes this idea beyond just like a mystical concept. You know,
Right.
He uses these biblical personal stories, even just like everyday examples, to make his point.
So he's grounding it in reality?
Exactly. It's like he's building a bridge between these deep spiritual ideas and like the actual reality of our lives.
I like that bridge building.
Yeah. I'm really intrigued by this whole serving God under authority thing.
Yeah.
He takes us back to the story of Samuel serving God under the guidance of the prophet Eli.
Oh, yeah, I remember that story.
And he uses that story to shed light on our modern relationships with our spiritual mentors.
Okay, so he's drawing a parallel there.
Yeah, and it's not about worshiping the leader, right? It's more about recognizing their role in our development.
So it's less about like idolizing them,
Exactly.
more about understanding how they fit into your spiritual journey.
Like an apprenticeship,
An apprenticeship, I like that.
where you're learning from someone with way more experience and you're slowly deepening your own understanding of faith.
Makes sense. You need someone to show you the ropes.
But he doesn't stop there.
Oh, there's more?
Oh yeah, buckle up, because he dives into this fascinating concept of recognizing the physical manifestations of spiritual reality.
Oh, okay, that's a mouthful.
I know, right? It
Yeah.
really made me think.
I bet it did.
And he uses the story of Elijah ascending to heaven to illustrate it.
Okay, so we have Samuel and Eli. Now we have Elijah.
Elisha too.
Right, Elisha,
Uh-huh.
Elijah's follower.
He knew what was about to happen. He even told the other prophets to be quiet about it.
So Elisha was in the know.
Totally. But Elijah still challenged him to actually see the event.
To see it, like physically see it.
Yeah, even though Elijah understood it spiritually, Elijah wanted him to connect that knowledge with the tangible, real-world event.
So it's not enough to just know it in your head.
It seems like it.
You got to see it play out in the physical world.
Right, and it made me wonder how many times we miss out on spiritual opportunities because we're so focused on the abstract ideas or prophecies.
And we miss what's happening right in front of us.
Exactly.
I know I've been guilty of that.
It's like we're waiting for a booming voice from heaven.
Uh-huh.
But God's already answering our prayers through a quiet whisper or a chance encounter.
I see it. So it's about being attuned to the physical world around us.
Exactly. Like we're so focused on the destination that we miss the scenery along the way.
I love that analogy.
Okay, let's move on to the part where Makandiwa tackles this big idea of God's invisibility.
Okay.
He starts by quoting Paul's description of God in Timothy, King eternal, immortal, invisible.
Right, invisible.
And then he brings up the example of Moses, and this is where it gets really powerful.
Moses leading the Israelites out of Egypt.
That's the one Makandiwa describes Moses enduring as seeing him who is invisible.
As seeing him who is invisible. Wow, that's quite the mindset.
You're right. Facing down Pharaoh, leading the Israelites through the wilderness, all while drawing strength from a God he couldn't physically see.
Makes you wonder, how do we see the invisible?
It's a question that's puzzled people for centuries.
For sure.
But Makandiwa offers a really interesting perspective. He says that by observing the visible creation,
Okay.
especially the intricate complexity of human beings,
Right, the human body is amazing.
we can start to grasp the invisible mind of God,
So he's saying that the fingerprints of the divine are all around us,
woven into the very fabric of creation,
like the vastness of the universe,
the design of the human body.
all pointing to a power beyond our comprehension.
So, by opening our eyes to the wonders of the visible world, we can catch glimpses of the invisible God.
That's beautiful.
It is. But then Makandiwa takes this concept a step further and introduces the idea of the theophany of men.
Theophany of men. Okay, I'm not familiar with that term.
You're probably not alone. So, theophany refers to the manifestation of God in a physical form.
Okay.
And Christophany is specifically about Christ's appearances in the Old Testament.
I see.
Makandiwa builds on these concepts and suggests a theophany of men. He's saying that people, especially spiritual leaders, can also manifest in different forms.
So they reflect the God nature within them,
Yeah, hold on. Are you saying we can see aspects of God reflected in other people?
especially our spiritual mentors.
That's a bold statement.
It is, and he emphasizes the need to learn to discern these manifestations, to really understand and connect with our spiritual leaders.
Okay, but how do we do that? How do we actually discern the divine in another person?
That is the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It sounds like we're getting in some pretty complex territory here.
We are, and Makandiwa doesn't shy away from it to illustrate his point. He uses this powerful biblical example.
Oh, which one?
Jacob wrestling with the angel.
Ah, yes. That story's got layers.
A being who was both man and divine.
So it sounds like we're about to get into the nitty-gritty of how this revelation of our spiritual leader actually happened.
Exactly, and this is where things get really interesting.
I can't wait. So Makandiwa's take on this whole Jacob wrestling with the angel thing is pretty fascinating.
Yeah, what's he saying about it?
Well, he interprets it as a call to wrestle with men, which might sound a little weird at first.
Wrestle with men, like physically.
Uh-huh. No, not like actual wrestling matches, but more like a challenge to master human systems, you know.
To understand how things work in the world so we can overcome obstacles and find success.
Exactly. And he brings in this idea of observation and critical thinking.
Okay.
He even shares a personal story about almost losing his firstborn child because of a lack of knowledge about infant care, even though they had been praying diligently.
That's a powerful example.
It really highlights how important it is to pair faith and spiritual understanding with practical knowledge and action.
So we can't just sit back and wait for miracles.
We got to engage with the world and make informed decisions.
It's like that saying, God helps those who help themselves.
Exactly. It ties back to that concept of recognizing the physical manifestations of spiritual things.
Sometimes the answer isn't some supernatural intervention,
But the knowledge and resources are already there.
if we just open our eyes to them.
It makes you think about how much we might be missing just because we're not paying attention.
Or expecting things to happen in a very specific way.
And this emphasis on practical observation, it even extends to how we approach our own health and well-being.
Okay.
Makandiwa shares this anecdote about a doctor resolving his chronic neck pain by suggesting a different pillow.
A pillow. Seriously.
I know, right? It's such a simple thing.
It's easy to over-spiritualize things and miss the practical solutions right in front of us.
Exactly. And he also talks about being honest with those who are trying to help us.
Oh yeah, that's huge.
Like if you're not honest with your doctor about your symptoms,
They can't give you the right treatment.
and it's the same in our spiritual lives.
If we're hiding our struggles or pretending to have it all together.
Our spiritual leaders can't truly understand us
Yeah.
or offer the right guidance.
So honesty and transparency are key.
For building a strong foundation for growth, both spiritually and physically.
And then Makandiwa goes on to encourage self-care.
Self-care.
Yeah, he says that investing in ourselves physically and emotionally is crucial for our spiritual development.
And for our ability to serve others effectively.
That's so important, especially in a culture that often glorifies self-sacrifice and busyness.
We forget to take care of ourselves.
You can't pour from an empty cup, right?
Exactly. If you're neglecting your own needs, you can't show up fully for yourself or the people you care about.
So self-care isn't selfish.
It's an act of service.
It allows us to be more present, more compassionate, more effective in all areas of our lives.
It's all about balance.
Between self-care and serving others.
Both are essential for a fulfilling life.
So as we're reflecting on all these ideas from Makandiwa's sermon,
Yeah.
there seems to be this underlying thread connecting them,
What do you mean?
from serving God under authority to recognizing the physical manifestations of spiritual realities to this idea of the theophany of men.
Yeah, I see it.
It's about discernment, observation, thinking critically about how these concepts actually play out in our lives.
It's about bridging the gap between the spiritual and the physical,
Recognizing that they're not separate spheres,
but intertwined aspects of our existence.
and that the answers we seek might not always come in these big dramatic ways,
Sometimes they're right there in front of us,
hidden in plain sight.
if we're just paying attention.
And that leads us to the core of this deep dive.
The two revelations,
Understanding God, yes.
but also understanding the people he's placed in our lives to guide us.
And it's not about blindly following or putting anyone on a pedestal. It's about recognizing their strengths and limitations.
Being honest and transparent in our interactions.
And developing our own discernment so we can navigate the complexities of both the spiritual and physical realms.
It's about embracing the messiness the challenge,
Just knowing that it's in those moments of wrestling and questioning.
that we often experience the most profound growth.
This whole conversation has really gotten me thinking
About
about my own relationships, how I can be more observant, more discerning, more honest in my life.
it's easy to fall into patterns of passivity,
To take things at face value without really engaging with them.
to continuous process of learning and growing,
And Makandiwa's insights give us a framework for navigating that journey.
with more intentionality and depth.
But I gotta admit, this theophany of men concept,
Yeah,
it's still a bit fuzzy for me.
I understand it's complex.
It's intriguing, but I'm not sure I fully grasp how it works practically.
Remember how Makandiwa spoke about the God nature that's within us all
Right.
and how it can manifest in different forms?
Like, we all carry a spark of the divine,
And it expresses itself in unique ways.
but it's especially relevant when we consider those who have dedicated their lives to serving God.
And guiding others,
They've cultivated that God nature within them.
allowing it to shape their thoughts, actions, their interactions with the world.
So when we talk about having a revelation of our spiritual leader,
Yeah.
it's not about worshiping them
It's about recognizing those manifestations of the God nature within them,
and learning from them.
seeing them as multifaceted individuals who reflect different aspects of God's character and power.
And just like God manifested in different forms in the Old Testament,
A burning bush,
a pillar of fire,
a voice from heaven.
our spiritual leaders might also show up in unexpected ways.
So we shouldn't expect them to always be teaching or preaching.
Sometimes their God nature might show up through a simple act of kindness,
A moment of vulnerability.
even a challenging confrontation that pushes us to grow,
Exactly, and it's up to us to discern what's being reflected in those moments.
and how it can help us on our own spiritual journeys.
Requires us to look beyond the surface.
To be open to the unexpected ways God might be working.
I think I might have taken a lot for granted in my own relationships with my spiritual mentors.
Yeah.
I haven't always been as observant or willing to really wrestle with their teachings and challenges
It takes time
to cultivate that level of discernment.
to develop a deeper understanding of the people guiding us.
But it's powerful.
It's not about putting our leaders on a pedestal
It's about recognizing the God nature within them.
and learning from the diverse ways it manifests.
It's challenging
But beautiful.
and can enrich our spiritual lives if we embrace it.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground
From serving God under authority
to recognizing those physical manifestations.
to understanding the theophany of men.
Makandiwa has given us a lot to think about.
It's been quite the deep dive.
And we're not done yet.
Oh, there's more.
Makandiwa goes on to share even more personal and challenging insights
Yeah.
about how we interact with our spiritual leaders. This has really gotten me thinking about my own relationships,
Me too.
about how I can be more observant, discerning, honest in my life,
That's what a deep dive like this is all about.
pushing us to think beyond the surface.
And apply these concepts to our own lives.
So what else does Makandiwa have in store for us?
Well, get ready for some tough love
Tough love.
and some surprising truths about honesty, self-awareness, and the true meaning of spiritual maturity.
Sounds intense.
It is, but it's worth it.
Okay, bring it on. Okay, so we're ready for the grand finale of this deep dive into Emmanuel Makandiwa's sermon. You mentioned some tough love coming our way.
Oh yeah, Makandiwa doesn't hold back. He really gets real about honesty.
Honesty.
Not just like general honesty, but specifically how we interact with our spiritual leaders.
Okay.
He says that when we hold back or put on a facade, it actually blocks our growth.
It prevents them from really helping us.
Right? Like think about it like that doctor analogy again.
If you're not telling the doctor everything, they can't give you the right treatment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They might be trying to fix a problem that doesn't even exist.
While the real issue gets worse.
And it's so easy to do that in our spiritual lives too.
We want to seem strong and like we have it all together.
But hiding our struggles just creates distance.
It blocks that connection and guidance we're looking for.
He even says that it can lead to getting the wrong solutions.
Like going to the doctor for a headache when you really need therapy.
Exactly. You're wasting everyone's time, and it can even damage the relationship.
If a leader feels like you're not being real with them,
It erodes trust.
they might start to question if you're really serious about growing.
So it's about radical transparency, being totally open so that real growth can happen.
But even with honesty, Makandiwa surprised me. He said, we still need to think critically about the advice we get.
Even from those we really respect.
So we shouldn't just blindly accept everything we're told.
It's not about being disrespectful.
But recognizing that everyone is human.
Even our mentors.
They have their own experiences and biases.
That shape how they see things.
He's saying we should engage with the information we're given.
Ask questions, seek understanding.
And even recognize when something doesn't sit right with us.
It's about being an active participant in your spiritual development.
Not just passively receiving, but wrestling with the ideas.
Testing them against your own experience.
And ultimately coming to your own conclusions.
He even says that sometimes the advice we get might not be right for our situation.
Even if it comes from a good place.
Even from someone we trust.
It takes courage to admit that even our spiritual leaders can make mistakes.
It takes the pressure off them to be perfect.
And it lets us trust our own intuition.
It's about a mature relationship.
With mutual respect.
But also room for honest conversation.
Even disagreement.
This has been a really thought-provoking deep dive.
I'm seeing how these two revelations of God and of our spiritual leader,
They're so connected.
they both need discernment.
A willingness to see beneath the surface.
And an active role in our own growth.
And Makandiwa reminds us to look inward too.
To be honest about our strengths and weaknesses.
And to take care of ourselves.
He encourages us to invest in self-care.
And not to feel bad about enjoying the good things in life.
It seems strange that taking care of ourselves is a spiritual practice.
Right. But it goes back to that idea of the empty cup.
We can't serve others or connect with God if we're exhausted and depleted.
So it's not selfish to set boundaries.
To say no sometimes.
And to prioritize our well-being.
It's actually wise.
And an act of self-love.
It lets us show up as our best selves.
In every area of our lives.
If we can step back and look at the big picture.
I think what Makandiwa was saying is that we need a more holistic approach to spiritual growth.
It's about seeing how everything is connected.
The spiritual and the physical, the inner and the outer.
It's about discernment, honesty, being active in our growth.
And remembering that our journey is a lifelong adventure.
With twists and turns along the way.
But with the right guidance and a willingness to learn.
We can face those challenges and come out stronger on the other side.
It's a journey worth taking.
And as Makandiwa reminded us, it's not a journey we have to take alone.
This deep dive has really opened my eyes.
I hope it sparked something in you too.
And inspired you to keep exploring your own two revelations.
Of God and of the people He's placed in your life to guide you.
Thanks for joining us.
It's been great exploring this with you.